My name is Claire Winslow, 32 years old. I'm a sous chef at a hotel restaurant in Seattle. After banquets, I usually drag myself back to my tiny rented house in a quiet neighborhood, dreaming of silence and leftovers. One night, I opened the door and walked straight into an impromptu pop-up dinner, strangers at my table, soft music playing, the smell of roasted meat in the air. My brother Nate had organized a paid secret dinner in my own house, using my signature recipes, my professional cookware, and ingredients he'd pulled from my work freezer. On the counter, my first ceramic knife, bought with my scholarship money, lay snapped in two. My late grandfather's recipe notebook was smeared with sauce. I remembered how my parents had asked for a spare key just in case, and all the times Nate had used my kitchen without asking. But this time I didn't swallow it. Before I tell you what happened next, let me know in the comments where you are watching from. And don't forget to hit like and subscribe if your family has ever crossed boundaries. One weekday afternoon, my phone lit up with my mother's name and a little turkey emoji. That alone told me what kind of Sunday it was going to be. In our family, the big roasted turkey doesn't only come out on Thanksgiving. It comes out when there's going to be a serious talk about the future. I'd spent the morning at the hotel prepping for a wedding tasting, hands deep in herb butter and citrus zest, trying not to replay the image of my broken knife and stained notebook. When Mom called, I wiped my fingers on a towel and answered on my break. She sounded bright, rehearsed. She didn't mention Nate using my house as his personal restaurant. She just said, "Honey, we're doing turkey this Sunday. It would mean a lot if you came. Your father and I have something exciting to share with you." Exciting. In my family, exciting has never once meant what you actually want. But guilt is a powerful seasoning, and they know how to use it. So Sunday evening, I drove across the bridge to Bellevue, the skyline fading in the rearview mirror as I entered the quiet, safe streets where every lawn is trimmed and every problem is hidden behind double-paned glass. The house I grew up in smelled like butter and rosemary when I stepped inside. For a moment, muscle memory tugged at me as a teenager basting the turkey while Mom arranged store-bought pies on heirloom plates and told everyone at church how talented her daughter was in the kitchen. Only now, the smell didn't feel cozy. It felt like a trap. "Claire, you're here, good," Dad called from the dining room. His voice had that too loud cheerfulness that usually meant he'd already chosen a side in some argument I didn't know about yet. I slipped off my shoes, hung my coat, and walked in. The table was fully set, but no one was serving yet. The turkey sat on its platter in the center, glossy and perfect. My mother hovered near the kitchen doorway, smoothing her apron even though there wasn't a wrinkle on it. And at the far end of the table, in Dad's chair, sat Nate. He was already there, of course. Elbow on the table, tablet propped in front of him, flipping through slides with the lazy confidence of a man who expects applause at the end. Next to his plate, perfectly aligned, was a navy folder with gold lettering, Winslow and Son Kitchen. Something cold curled in my stomach. "Hey, chef," Nate said without looking up, chin lifting in a little nod like we were colleagues and not two people who had just had a blowout over him turning my house into a side hustle. "You made it just in time." I sat down in my usual spot, across from Mom, diagonal from Nate. Dad took his seat at the head, the captain's chair as he liked to call it. There was a moment of awkward clinking and shifting, salad bowls being passed, the scraping of Dad's chair as he cleared his throat. So he began, folding his hands like a boardroom manager. "Your mother and I have been talking, praying, thinking about your future, Claire." Mom leaned forward, eyes bright. "We know you've been working so hard at that hotel, honey. All those late nights, all that talent, and for what? Someone else's name on the menu." I felt my jaw tighten. They never ask what I actually do there. They just picture me chopping onions in the background of someone else's dream. Dad nodded along. That's why, when Nate came to us with an idea, it just clicked. We realized God might be opening a door for our family. A real legacy. Nate tapped his tablet screen, and the image changed to a sleek logo, Winslow and Son Kitchen in clean, modern letters, a little stylized flame curling above it. Beneath the logo, there was a tagline, Modern Comfort by Chef Claire Winslow. My own name in a smaller font, tucked like a garnish under his. He spun the tablet toward me, smiling. Pretty good, right? I paid a guy on Fiverr, but it looks legit. I stared at the screen. For a moment, I couldn't even find words. Mom jumped in, her voice warm with pride. We've found the perfect path for you, sweetheart. A family restaurant. Your food, your training, but with a strong brand. And what am I in this brand? I asked slowly. Besides the tagline? Dad answered before Nate could. You're the chef, of course. The heart of it. The kitchen is your domain, full creative freedom. Nate will be the face out front, handling the business side, investors, marketing. You don't like dealing with people anyway, right? This way you can just cook. Just cook? On the presentation slide Nate flipped to, there was a mock-up of a storefront. Big windows, warm light, the logo on the glass. And my role had one line. His section went on for several slides, front of house concept, social media strategy, Nate's story, with a professional headshot of him in a denim jacket, arms crossed, grinning. Wait, I said. Founder? Seriously? Nate shrugged, like it was obvious. Brand needs a central figure. You're more of the artist type. And I'm better talking to people, getting investors comfortable. It's a natural division of labor. Mom reached for my hand across the table. We've already spoken to the bank, honey. They were very impressed you already have a culinary degree and a stable job. That really helped with the pre-approval. I pulled my hand back slowly. Pre-approval for what? Dad cleared his throat again. For the business loan. Don't worry, it's all very manageable. We've also talked to Mr. Carlson, you remember. He owns that building near the church. He's willing to give us a good rate on the space if we sign quickly. And Pastor Ron thinks a family-run place will be a blessing to the community. The room started to tilt, just a little. Us. I repeated. You keep saying us. But who exactly is on this loan? Nate flipped to another slide. Tiny text, columns of numbers. It'll be in your name, obviously, he said casually. You've got the degree, the experience. The bank likes that. But we'll all be behind you. It's a team effort. My fork clinked against the plate. Wait, so let me get this straight. I provide the name on the paperwork, the chef title, and the kitchen. I nodded at Nate, get to be the founder and the face. And Mom and Dad, what exactly do you two do? Mom's smile tightened. We advise. We've been talking through the concept with Nate for weeks. We know people, Claire. Church friends, old coworkers. We can help bring in regulars, maybe even investors. Weeks. They'd been talking about my future for weeks and I was hearing about it now, between turkey and mashed potatoes, like an agenda item. Dad spread his hands, as if presenting a done deal. Your hard work has laid the foundation. This is how we build something that lasts. Winslow and Sun Kitchen could be our legacy. People will finally see what you can do, and your brother can use his gifts too. The hierarchy, neat and tidy. My skills as the structure, Nate on the marquee, and my parents as the wise counselors. I looked down at my plate, at the perfectly carved turkey breast, the gravy pooled like warm mud. I thought of the guests in my living room, paying for Chef Claire's secret dinner while I was sweating on the hotel line for hourly wages. I lasted through maybe 3 more minutes of legacy talk before my skin started to crawl. My throat felt tight, turkey going dry in my mouth. I'm just going to get some air, I said, pushing my chair back. Mom's smile flickered. Don't be long, honey. We haven't even shown you the financial projections. I nodded like I'd be right back, then slipped through the kitchen and out the sliding door to the back porch. I wrapped my arms around myself and tried to breathe. Inside, their voices hummed like a distant TV, muffled but relentless. Then, the door slid open again with a soft thunk. Mind if I join you? A voice asked. I turned. Aunt Paula stepped out, easing the door shut behind her. She was my mom's younger sister, the permanent background character at these dinners, helping in the kitchen and always disappearing before the serious conversations. Sure, I said. As long as you don't have a PowerPoint. She huffed out a quiet laugh and leaned on the railing beside me. For a moment, we just stood there, listening to the muted clink of dishes from inside. They ambushed you, she said finally. No preamble, no softening. I stared at her. So it's not just me being dramatic. Oh, it's absolutely not just you, she said. This is very on brand for your parents. I frowned. On brand? She swirled her wine, watching the liquid move. Your mom's been doing this kind of thing since we were kids. I'd come up with an idea, she'd polish it, present it to our parents like it was hers, and guess who got the praise. I tried to picture my mother as the younger version of herself, stealing ideas. It was disturbingly easy. Like what? I asked. Paula smiled sadly. 5th grade costume contest. I stayed up making these little cardboard wings for my butterfly costume. Amy walked into my room, watched me for an hour, then asked if she could help. Next day she shows up to school in my exact design, just made in new cardboard so it looked cleaner. Guess whose photo ended up in the yearbook? I winced. Seriously? Senior year, she continued. I sketched a dress for prom. Couldn't afford to have it made myself, but I loved the design. A few months later, Amy gets engaged. She shows my sketch to Mom and says, "Look what I came up with for my wedding dress." They both cried. And I was the maid of honor in a dress I designed and watched her take the compliments all night. Anger flared in my chest, on behalf of teenage Paula and, suddenly, on behalf of myself. She's still doing it, Paula said quietly. Only now the dress is your career. I looked through the glass door. Mom was at the table, laughing at something Nate had said, hand on his shoulder, eyes shining. They're using your name, your skills, your degree, Paula went on. Also, they can build this shiny picture of successful son Nate, with a gourmet chef's sister supporting him. They love how it looks from the outside. Entrepreneur son, talented daughter, proud parents. She took a sip of wine. They've always put appearances above people, Claire. The words landed like a stone in my stomach because they rang so horribly true. I feel crazy, I admitted. They're sitting in there acting like they're giving me this huge gift. Like I should be grateful they decided what to do with my life without even asking me. You're not crazy, Paula said. You're just the only one who's finally seeing the pattern. I blinked hard against the sting in my eyes. What am I supposed to do? Just tell them no and drive back to my little house like everything's fine? They've already gone to the bank, talked to landlords, dragged the church into it. Paula hesitated, then set her glass down on the railing. Listen, she said. I wasn't going to bring this up unless I had to. But I have a place in Fort Collins. Small house I keep there for work trips. It's sitting empty most of the time. She looked at me steadily. If you need to get away, to clear your head and sort things out without them breathing down your neck, you can stay there. For as long as you need. I stared at her. You're serious? Dead serious, she stated. No strings. No presentations. Just you, a quiet place, and a lock only you have the key to. The idea felt unreal. Inside, someone called my name. My mother's voice, sweet and insistent. Paula picked up her wine and gave my arm a gentle squeeze. Think about it, she murmured. You don't have to let them write your story just because they've been holding the pen for a long time. The next morning after that turkey dinner, I woke up to my phone buzzing on the nightstand before my alarm, screen lit with a family group chat that had been quiet for weeks and now suddenly looked like a fire alarm. First was Mom. Honey, talked to a wonderful interior designer. She's so excited about our kitchen. We set up a meeting for next Tuesday, 3 p.m. You'll love her ideas. Right under it, a second message, bring any of your signature dishes so she can get a feel for your style. Then Nate, not even waiting for me to respond. Bro, look at this. He'd send a PNG file. I opened it, and there it was, a slick, restaurant-ready logo in black and gold. Nate Winslow's Kitchen in huge, bold letters, the kind you'd see glowing over a doorway downtown. Underneath, in much smaller letters, like the fine print on a contract, it said, Recipes by Claire Winslow. Not chef. Not executive chef. Just recipes, like I was a cookbook he'd taken off a shelf. I stared at it so long my coffee went cold. The part of me that had grown up craving my family's approval twitched. It did look good. It looked real. It looked like something people would post selfies under. But the rest of me, the part that had walked into strangers eating in my living room, felt like I was watching my own name be folded and folded until it almost disappeared. While I was still processing that, Dad called. Morning, Claire, he said, like this was a normal Saturday. Got some exciting news. I wanted you to hear it from me before your mother posts something on Facebook. My stomach clenched. What now? Well, to speed things up, he began my least favorite phrase. We went ahead and submitted the application for the restaurant license. I sat up in bed. You did what? The business license, he repeated slower, as if the problem was my hearing. And the initial permit paperwork. In your name, of course, because you have the culinary degree. That really impressed the guy at the city office. Don't worry, we use the home address for now, but we can change it once we sign the lease. You used my name? I said. On legal paperwork. Without asking me. There was a pause. I could picture him rubbing his forehead. Claire, sweetheart, this is just how things get done, he said. If we wait for everyone to be ready, we'll miss the opportunity. You said you wanted to move up, didn't you? This is moving up. We're just getting the ball rolling. I haven't said yes, I managed. To any of this. We know you, Dad said gently. You always overthink things. Sometimes you have to step out in faith. Your mother and I, we're covering you in prayer. Nate's really stepped up with the business side. All you have to do is cook. Let us handle the rest. My heart pounded in my ears. He took my silence for consent, like always. Anyway, just wanted you to know. We're meeting the designer Tuesday, and Pastor Ron said he might know someone interested in investing. This is all happening fast, Claire. Don't sabotage it because you're scared. We hung up, and I sat there on the edge of my bed, phone in my hand, feeling like my whole life was a sled they were pushing down a hill I hadn't chosen. In the middle of that swirling panic, my phone rang again. Unknown number. Seattle area code. For a second, I almost let it go to voicemail. Then habit kicked in, what if it was the hotel, and I answered. Hello. Hi, is this Claire Winslow? The voice was male, warm but professional. Yes, this is Michael Lawrence from Solstice. My brain did a little stutter. Solstice. The new tasting menu place downtown that all the line cooks at work were obsessed with. The one I'd drunkenly sent my resume to at 2 a.m. a month back, thinking, why not? They'll never call me anyway. Hi, I said. Wow. Hi. He chuckled. Sorry for the out-of-the-blue call. We're finally getting through a backlog of applications, and I just read yours. Your experience at Harborcrest is solid, and that note about your braised lamb and citrus potatoes stuck with me. I wanted to see if you'd be interested in coming in for a working interview, he continued. We're looking for someone to take over as chef for the dinner program. It would start as a paid stage, a couple of days in the kitchen with us, you cook a few dishes, we see how we work together. Then, if it's a fit. He didn't finish the sentence, but my heart filled in the blank. I swallowed. You're looking for a chef? As in, head of the kitchen. As in, someone to help set the tone for the menu and build a team, he said. I'm moving more into the business and concept side. I need a creative mind on the line. Your resume says you've been running banquets almost single-handedly some nights. That takes serious organization. I thought of the hotel's walk-in, the endless tickets, Marco trusting me to run the pass. All the invisible leadership. And what would you want me to cook? I asked. Something that feels like you, he said. Take on a stew, maybe. Something slow, comforting. And a dessert. We're big on seasonal, big on depth of flavor. I want to see how you think on a plate. After we hung up, he'd given me a date, Thursday afternoon, and a time. I sat there staring at the wall, my father's words and Michael's overlapping in my head like two radio stations bleeding into each other. Thursday came faster than I expected. I took the day off from the hotel, claiming personal reasons, and took the bus downtown. Solstice sat on a corner, all wood and glass and soft lighting, the kind of place you walk by and assume is out of your price range. Inside, the kitchen was smaller than the hotel's, but somehow felt bigger, more open. Shelves held jars of pickled things in jewel colors. Someone was roasting bones in the ovens, the smell rich and primal. Cooks moved with that focused, quiet intensity one loved. Michael met me on the line, mid-40s, beard, hair pulled back, tattoos peeking from under his sleeves. He shook my hand and looked me directly in the eyes in a way that made it clear he was evaluating, but not dismissive. Glad you made it, he said to me. Station 3 is yours today. You good? I nodded, nerves buzzing like static. Yeah, I'm good. I'd spent all week planning my dishes. For the stew, I did a riff on the pot roast I'd grown up with from Grandpa's notebook, only now, I leaned into everything I'd learned. Beef short ribs instead of chuck, seared hard, then braised with miso, red wine, and coffee. I layered in charred onions, smoked paprika, a splash of fish sauce for depth. On the plate, I served it over a celery root puree, topped with pickled mustard seeds, and a little salad of shaved fennel and parsley for brightness. For dessert, I went simpler: roasted pear with brown butter crumble, whipped creme fraiche, and a drizzle of rosemary caramel. Nothing flashy. Just honest, layered flavors. As I cooked, I felt my body drop into a rhythm I knew better than my own reflection. Knife, pan, salt, taste, adjust. The line chatter faded. There was only heat and timing and that quiet click when things start to fall into place. Michael watched without hovering, stepping in only to ask the occasional question. Why miso? Why coffee? What are you trying to make people feel with this dish? Each time I answered, and each time I heard myself sounding like a chef. Not a helper. Not a background technician. Someone with reasons, a point of view. When we finally plated for tasting, he called over the sous chef and a couple of line cooks. They took bites, heads bowing over the plates, that all-important silence after the first forkful. Then Michael looked up at me. I like how you think, he said. You cook with memory and brains. That's rare. My throat tightened. Thank you. He set his fork down. So, if you want it, the position is yours. Chef of dinner service. You'll work with me on the menu, hire your team, develop specials. It's not going to be easy, but it'll be yours. Not mine. Only yours. For a second, I couldn't speak. The cling of the kitchen around us blurred into a soft roar. My name, my food, my choices. Not a logo with my contribution in tiny letters. Not a license filed behind my back. Michael looking at me like I was someone worth betting a restaurant on, I heard myself say, yes, I want it. He grinned, stuck out his hand, and we shook like equals. He told me HR would send over a formal offer that night: salary, benefits, start date, a probation period, and a line that made my chest ache: roll, chef, dinner program. On the bus home, my phone buzzed with email. It was real, numbers, terms, my name spelled correctly at the top. At the end, there was a note: we're excited to see what you create here, Claire. By the time I stepped out onto my street in Ballard, drizzle beating on my jacket, I felt strangely calm. Scared, but clear. But that calm lasted right until I opened my front door. My living room looked like Pinterest had exploded. There were fabric swatches spread across my coffee table, paint chips in little fans, and a trifold board propped against the wall with "Our Restaurant" written in big black marker across the top. Someone had dragged my dining chairs into a row. On each seat sat a different chair catalog, pages marked with sticky notes. And in the middle of it all, like a director on set, sat Nate. He was cross-legged on my rug, laptop open, phone on speaker, gesturing to an invisible audience as I walked in. Yeah, totally, we're thinking warm neutrals, some reclaimed wood, very Pacific Northwest comfort vibe, he was saying. My sister's all about, modern homey food. It's going to crush. I dropped my keys in the bowl by the door a little harder than necessary. He glanced up. Oh, she's here now. I'll loop her in later, he added into the phone, then hung up. Hey, Claire Bear. I hated when he called me that. What are you doing here? I asked. He spread his arms like a magician revealing a trick. Welcome to Ground Zero of Winslow and Son Kitchen. I brought over some samples so we can start locking in the look. Mom's meeting with the designer Tuesday, so we need a vibe board, you know. He tapped the words on the trifold, labeled Family Restaurant. Wait. You shouldn't be in here, I said. You don't live here. Nate waved that off. Mom gave me the key again, relax. And we're way past that whole meltdown night. He mimed quotes around meltdown. We've got momentum now. Paperwork's already in motion. You're not going anywhere. He said it so casually, like a simple fact. I set my bag down, unzipped my jacket slowly, buying myself a second to line up the words I needed. Actually, I said, I am. He snorted. What, you're quitting the hotel? Finally. Good. We need you free for menu development once we get the lease signed. No, I replied. I'm not quitting the hotel for your restaurant. I'm quitting it for mine. He blinked, thrown for half a second. Come again. I accepted an offer today, I said. At Solstice. As chef. I've already signed the contract. The room went very still. Then he laughed, short and sharp. Wait. That fancy little place downtown? The one with, 12 tables and no parking? That's Solstice. Yes, I answered. Claire. He shook his head, smiling like I'd made a cute mistake. Come on. That's a stepping stone. A resume booster. What we're building here. That's long-term. Business. Security. You're really going to walk away from our restaurant to go be some guy's second in command. I'm not second in command, I stated. I'm the chef. I'll be writing the menu. And hiring my own team. He rolled his eyes. Sure. Until he changes his mind or the investors get nervous or the reviews tank. He slapped the trifold board, this is real. We've already filed the license. Dad said the bank loved your background. You're not backing out now because you're flattered some hipster with tattoos liked your stew. Normally, that would have landed. He knew exactly where to poke, my insecurity, my fear of making the wrong choice. But I had the email from Solstice in my pocket. Wordlessly, I took my phone out, opened the offer letter, and handed it to him. Scroll, I said to him. And Nate did. His smirk faded as he read, the salary, the benefits, the title. The part about a possible bonus structure if certain targets were hit. He looked up. He's paying you that much? And you signed? Yes. This afternoon. He stared at me, anger slowly replacing surprise. You should have talked to us first. I did, I said. At dinner. You just weren't listening. He snapped the phone back into my hand. You're making a big mistake. Maybe, I said quietly. But it'll be my mistake. Not yours. He stood up, pacing a short line between my couch and the coffee table. You're seriously going to throw away everything we've set up? The bank, the landlord, Pastor Ron talking investors. I didn't set that up, I interrupted. You did. And our parents. Without me. He opened his mouth, closed it, grabbed his laptop. We'll see what Dad says, he muttered, like Dad was the judge who could overrule my decision. Doesn't matter what Dad says, I replied. I'm not participating. I'm not lending my degree or my time to this. He slammed his laptop shut, grabbed a pile of fabric swatches, and stuffed them into his bag. You're being selfish. For once, instead of flinching, I let the word sit between us. Maybe I am, I said. But you should try it sometime. He left without another word, the door rattling in its frame behind him. The silence afterward felt different from the one after the pop-up dinner. Less like a void, more like space. I texted Aunt Paula. You still know that lawyer you mentioned? She replied almost immediately. Absolutely. His name's Mark. I'll text you his info. Don't sign anything else from your parents until you talk to him. 2 days later, I sat in a small office above a coffee shop downtown, across from a man in his 40s with kind eyes and a desk full of neatly stacked files. Paula sat beside me, hands wrapped around a to-go cup. So Mark started, pushing his glasses up. Walk me through what's been done in your name. I told him everything. The family dinner, the license my father mentioned, the logo, the calls about the bank and landlord. The way they kept saying we when the only one whose life would be legally on the hook was me. He listened without interrupting, tapping notes into his laptop. When I finished, he typed for another minute, then turned the screen so I could see. There is indeed a business registered under your name, he said calmly. Winslow and Son Kitchen LLC. You're listed as the sole owner. He scrolled. Your brother is designated as managing member. And your parents are on as advisors, with authority to act on behalf of the business in certain matters. My mouth went dry. They really did that without telling me? How is that even allowed? He shrugged slightly. If they forged your digital signature or clicked through forms pretending to be you, it's not allowed. It's fraud. But the state doesn't know that. As far as the system is concerned, you opened a business and gave these people authority. A cold, tight anger spread through my chest, different from the hot flashes I was used to. What does that mean for me? I asked. It means, he said, that right now, on paper, you're responsible for anything that business does, debts, contracts, maybe even health code violations if they started operating. The good news is, it's early. We can unwind this before it gets uglier. He laid out a plan, step by step. First, we draft a statement of termination of business, essentially, your formal notice that you are dissolving Winslow and Sun Kitchen LLC as the owner. Then we send notifications to the bank and landlord your father mentioned, making it very clear you did not authorize any agreements and will not be liable for any obligations. And, he added, given they're using your culinary degree to apply for licenses, we prepare a cease-and-desist regarding the use of your name and credentials without consent. He started pulling templates from his files, customizing them as he talked. You'll need to sign these, he said. Some might need notarization. We'll file them with the state and send copies to your family's partners. It won't be fun, but it will put a legal wall between you and whatever they think they're building. I glanced at Paula. She gave me a small nod. This is you taking the pen back, she said softly. By the time I left that office, my folder was thick with documents. I felt exposed and protected at the same time, like I'd stepped into the open with armor on. That night, I stopped at the hardware store on the way home. I bought new deadbolts, new doorknobs, even a new little smart lock for the back door. The kid at the register asked if I needed help installing them. I told him I'd figure it out. I'd figured everything else out. Back at my house, I laid the locks on the counter next to my grandfather's notebook, now cleaned as well as it would ever be. One by one, I unscrewed the old locks, the ones my parents and Nate had keys to, and replaced them. Metal pieces clinked into a pile on the table, a small mountain of the old access they'd had to my space. When I called the alarm company, I could hear the click of keys on their end as they pulled up my account. Yes, I said. I want to change the master code. And remove the secondary contacts. All of them. Just me from now on. They confirmed my identity with a series of questions. At the end, the rep said, all set, Ms. Winslow. Only you can disarm it now. The next day, at work, I finally told a couple of people what was going on. Not all the messy details, but enough. In the prep room, while we were breaking down cases of vegetables, Mariah from Pastry listened with wide eyes as I described the pop-up dinner, the family restaurant, with the secretly filed business. That's insane, she said, setting down a bag of sugar. Claire, that's actually insane. Leo, one of the line cooks, whistled low. My folks guilt me about not being a lawyer, but this is next level. I shrugged, trying for nonchalant and missing. I've got a new job lined up. A lawyer. Locks. I'll be fine. You sure you'll be safe? Mariah asked. Like, emotionally safe? Because if you need somewhere to crash while this blows up, my roommate's never home. You can take her room for a while. I've got the house, I said. But, thanks. Really. Leo wiped his hands on a towel. When you move to Solstice, call me, he said. If they're hiring line cooks, I'll follow you. I've seen how you run a station. I'd work in your kitchen. His words warmed me in a way I didn't expect. Not because I needed followers, but because they saw me. Not as a daughter or a sister or a convenient name for paperwork. As a leader. As someone worth standing beside. Walking home that night, tired down to my bones, I realized that the people who were offering me couches and truck beds and future jobs weren't related to me by blood. But they were showing up. They were listening when I said no. And they didn't expect to own my life in exchange for their help. The invitation came as a text from my mother with more emojis than words. Family meeting next Sunday, 5 p.m. important. Everyone will be there. Dress nice. Everyone? That was my first warning. The second was when Aunt Paula forwarded me a screenshot from Dad's Facebook, a blurry photo of a cake with frosting lettering that read Winslow and Sun Kitchen, coming soon. People in the comments were already typing things like, so proud of Nate, and can't wait to try his food. His food? By the time Sunday rolled around, I had a folder in my bag thicker than any Bible study packet my parents had ever handed out. Mark had drafted everything, the notice of termination for the LLC, the cease and desist about my name and diploma, the letters to the bank and landlord. My signature was already on all of it, neat and dark and mine. I drove to Bellevue in silence. No music, no podcast. Just my own breath and the occasional muttered, "You can do this." As soon as I stepped into my parents' house, I could feel the performance in the air. Coats on the rack that weren't family, men's voices from the dining room, the trill of my mother's laughter turned up a notch. "Claire." "There she is," Mom called, appearing in the hallway like she'd been waiting for her cue. She gave me a quick hug that smelled like perfume and powdered sugar. "You look lovely, honey. Investors are already here." "Investors?" She steered me toward the dining room before I could take my shoes off. The table was covered in more than food this time. At one end sat Uncle David and his wife, offering tight smiles. Next to them was my godfather, Frank, a retired accountant who still wore his ties too tight. Across from them, two couples I barely recognized, one man I knew vaguely from church as the guy who owns a car dealership, another who ran some kind of construction company. And, in the middle of the table, like a centerpiece, were 3 small sheet cakes from a local bakery. Each one had the same logo printed in colored frosting, Nate Restaurant. The laptop at the head of the table showed a slideshow on loop, a rendering of a cozy restaurant interior, our last name on the window, a staged shot of some anonymous roast chicken that was supposed to be mine. Dad stood there like a proud MC, hand resting on the back of Nate's chair. Nate, of course, sat at the head of the table, in Dad's usual spot, leaning back like a man already giving interviews. The star of the show," Dad announced as I stepped in. "Everyone, this is my daughter, Claire, the culinary genius behind our family kitchen." Polite applause fluttered around the table. My godfather gave me a thumbs up. I wanted to crawl out of my own skin. "Nice to finally meet the chef," the car dealer said. "Nate's been telling us all about your menu." "Has he now?" I thought. I managed a nod, a tight smile, and took the empty chair my mother indicated right at the opposite end of the table from Nate, like we were opposing counsels in a courtroom. "Before we eat," Dad said, clapping his hands once, "we wanted to make this official. We're so grateful you all are here to witness the beginning of something special for our family." He nodded to Mom, who reached into a decorative folder and pulled out a stack of papers clipped together. She smoothed them with almost reverent hands, then placed them in front of me on a little leather portfolio. On top sat a pen I recognized from Dad's office. Nate leaned forward, shoulder brushing Dad's. "This is it," he said, grinning at me. "The last step. Once you sign, we're fully locked in. Bank, landlord, everything." I looked down. The top page was a credit agreement. My name appeared in block letters at the top, my social security number already typed in. Somewhere near the middle, the words "personally responsible" floated up at me like a warning buoy. "You didn't tell me I'd be signing anything today," I said, my voice soft but carrying. Dad chuckled, like I was being adorably cautious. "It's mostly a formality at this point. We've already done the hard part. This just confirms you're on board with what you started." He said it pointedly, as if repetition could make it true. "And we thought," Mom added, "that it would be so meaningful to do this here, in front of family and friends. A witness moment." Around us, the potential investors smiled, waiting for their money to attach itself to my name. I took a breath, feeling the weight of the folder in my bag like a second spine. "Before I sign anything," I said, "I need to clarify something." Nate rolled his eyes a fraction. "Claire, don't make this weird. We've got people here. We can go over the details later." "No," I said, and even I was surprised by how steady it came out. "We're going to go over them now, since everyone is here." My heart hammered, but my hands didn't shake as I reached into my bag. I slid out my own folder and laid it on the table in front of me. "What's that?" Mom asked, voice tightening. "Documents from my lawyer," I stated. Uncle David's eyebrows shot up. Across the table, my godfather shifted in his chair. Dad laughed again, but there was no warmth in it now. "You hired a lawyer?" "For what?" "For the business you opened in my name without my consent," I replied. The room went quiet. The slideshow on the laptop flicked to another sparkling rendering, its little animation cheerfully unaware. I opened my folder and began laying papers out like cards, one in front of Dad, one in front of Mom, one in front of Nate. These, I said, tapping the first page, are notices that Winslow and Son Kitchen LLC was registered and operated under my name and using my culinary license without my knowledge or consent. They state that I, as the named owner, am terminating the business effective immediately. Mom's eyes darted over the text, her lips moving as she read. Claire, what is this? This one, I went on, sliding another sheet toward Nate, is a demand that you cease all operations under that legal status, including using my degree to apply for licenses, my name in contracts, or my identity for loans. I could feel the investors' eyes ping-ponging between us, like they were suddenly at a different kind of show. And these, I said, placing 2 more documents in the center of the table for anyone to see, are letters to the bank and the landlord you approached. They inform them that I did not authorize any applications or agreements made in my name, and that I will not be liable for any obligations or debts associated with your made-up business. Dad's face went red, then pale, then red again. You went behind our backs. I'm cleaning up what you did behind mine, I cut in. Nate shoved his chair back a few inches, the legs scraping the floor. This is overreacting on a whole other level. Is it? I asked. You set up a business as if I'd agreed. You started financial conversations with my name as the foundation. You invited people here today to watch me sign away my credit like it was a blessing. I looked at the cakes. My name in frosting was almost too small to make out under his. For the record, I said, turning back to the table, if any of you were thinking about investing, you should know, there is no restaurant with my name on it. Not legally. Not anymore. If Nate wants to open a place, he is free to. Under his own license, with his own credit. But I will not be attached to it. Card dealer guy cleared his throat. So, you're not the chef? I'm a chef, I said. Just not for this. My voice softened, grew firmer again. I've already accepted a position at Solstice. Contract signed. My energy, my menu, my reputation, that's where they're going. But not here. For a moment, all I could hear was the hum of the fridge in the kitchen and the faint buzz of the laptop fan. Mom reached for the paper in front of her, fingers trembling. Claire, you didn't have to go this far. We could have talked. We tried talking, I said. You all kept moving the ball down the field and calling it God's plan. You used my education, my job, my life as raw material for Nate's story. My father's jaw clenched. We were building something for you. For us. No, I said quietly. You were building something with me as the foundation and Nate as the sign on the door. I pushed back the portfolio they'd given me with the waiting pen, sliding it across the table like an unwanted dish. I'm not signing your papers, I finished. You're going to sign mine. Or you'll at least understand that if you don't, the state, the bank, and Mr. Carlson's lawyer will still receive them. Nate looked down at the cease-and-desist, then up at me with something like betrayal in his eyes. You're really going to blow this up, he asked. In front of everyone? I met his gaze. You blew it up when you built it on a stolen foundation. My hands rested on the table, palms open, documents spread between us like a new map. They didn't blow up at the table. And that almost made it worse. After the big meeting, everyone scattered under a cloud of awkward small talk and half-eaten cake. My parents barely looked at me as I left. Nate wouldn't meet my eyes at all. I expected the fallout to come by text or some long guilt-saturated email. 3 days later, just before my late shift, my new doorbell camera pinged my phone. The app showed a live view of my front porch, my parents, side by side, Nate behind them, and my throat-clenched Grandma Rose, gripping her purse with both hands. They'd brought the heavy artillery. I buzzed the intercom. Hey. Mom looked straight into the camera like it was a TV. Claire, honey, we need to talk. Please open the door. I could have pretended not to be home, but avoiding them felt like going back to the old version of me. I walked to the door, glanced at the new deadbolt I'd installed myself, and opened it halfway, the chain still on. Hi, Grandma, I said first. Her face softened. Hi, baby. Mom's eyes flicked to the chain, offended. Is that really necessary? Yes, I said, unhooking it. Come in. The house looked different now. I'd moved the furniture, angled the couch away from the front window. A small camera sat discreetly on the bookshelf, its tiny blue light on. The kitchen counters were clear, everything in its place. No mystery coolers, no strangers at my table. They all noticed. Nate's gaze went straight to the camera. "You're filming us?" he asked. "I'm filming my house," I answered. "Coat rack's there." They shuffled in. Grandma moved slowly, taking in the changes like she was walking through a museum of my new life. I guided them to the dining table, where 4 small plates were already set. "I was testing dishes for solstice," I said. "Figured we might as well eat while we talk." On each plate was a little portion of my coffee miso short rib stew over celery root puree, and a slice of roasted pear with crumble. It felt deliberate, putting my food, the food I'd chosen, for my job between us. Dad sat at the head without asking. Mom took the chair beside him, Nate across from me. Grandma chose the seat closest to the window, where the light fell on her lined face. "We're not here for a dinner party," Dad said. "We're here because you embarrassed us in front of our friends." "Tom," Grandma said quietly, but he forged on. "You blindsided us with those papers," he continued. "In front of potential investors, no less. You made us look like schemers. But you used my identity without my consent," I said. "In front of a bank." Mom's eyes filled with tears on cue. "We are your parents. We have always had your best interests at heart. Families don't treat each other like criminals, Claire. They don't send legal notices like we're the enemy." I took a slow breath. "I didn't call you criminals. I laid out facts. Speaking of which," I reached under the table and pulled out a thin stack of printouts, placing them carefully next to the plates. One in front of each of them. Nate frowned. "What's this?" "Evidence," I said. The first page was a series of stills from my new camera system. The installation guy had managed to pull older footage from the basic model I'd had before, the one Nate never bothered to look for. Date stamps and time codes glared at the top corner. In the photos, you could see Nate at my front door, letting strangers in. Nate carrying hotel containers through my kitchen. My living room full of diners, wine glasses raised. "Claire, where did you?" Mom began. "I told you I had cameras," I said. "You just didn't believe me. Or you didn't care." The second page was a printout of an online loan application. My name filled the applicant field. The signature line at the bottom bore a clumsy version of my signature, close, but not quite right. Mark had highlighted the IP address used to submit it, traced back to my parents' house. Dad's face went chalky. "You're reading too much into." "The bank didn't think so," I cut in, tapping the third page, a letter on official letterhead. "They accepted my statement of non-consent. Any pending applications with my name attached are on hold pending investigation. They know I didn't authorize them." I let that sink in. Nate slapped his hand on the table, dishes rattling. "So that's it? You're just going to burn it all down? Do you have any idea what you did to my chance?" "I finally had something lined up and you," his voice cracked with something raw. "You ruined it." Guilt flared, instinctive and sharp. I forced myself to sit with it, then looked at him steadily. "I didn't ruin your chance," I said. "I refused to let you build it out of stolen materials. You can still open a restaurant. You can still pitch investors. You just can't do it on my license and my credit and my name, while telling everyone it's your empire and I should be grateful to chop onions in the back." Dad pushed his plate away. "Why are you talking like a stranger? We are your parents." "There it is again," I said softly. "Parents as a magic word that makes everything okay." Mom bristled. "When you were little, we sacrificed for you. We drove you to early classes, scraped for your tuition. And I'm grateful," I said. "I've said thank you. I've cooked for every church event you ever asked. I moved back here to help when Grandma was sick. But gratitude is not a lifetime contract for you to sign my name on things." For a moment, no one spoke. The only sound was the small scrape of Grandma's fork on her plate. She was quietly eating the stew, eyes on the food, not on us. "Rose," Mom said finally, turning to her. "Say something. She's your granddaughter. Talk some sense into her." Grandma dabbed her mouth with a napkin, then set it down with careful precision. When she looked up, her gaze was sharper than I'd seen in years. "I am talking sense," she said. "I'm just not sure you're going to like it." Mom blinked. "What?" "I watched that presentation," Grandma went on, voice gaining strength. "The one with Nate's name big and Claire's small. I watched you hand her papers to sign like she was an afterthought at her own signing. That's not fair, Dad protested. We were honoring her. You were using her, Grandma said simply. The word hung in the air like a bell. I've seen this before, she continued, turning to me. With Paula. Every time one of you girls had something real, a talent, an idea, someone in this family tried to turn it into a pretty picture to hang on the wall and brag about. Mom's face flushed. That is not what this is. Isn't it? Grandma asked. You love how it would look, Amy. Our son the entrepreneur, our daughter the chef, our family restaurant. It's the same thing you did with my baking all those years. I did the work, you took the compliments. I stared at her. I knew Mom had pushed her, but I'd never heard Grandma say it so plainly. They asked me to bake for every fundraiser, every potluck, Grandma said, almost to herself now. Your mother would stand in front of my pies and say, aren't we blessed? Our family just has the touch. Not Rose stayed up until midnight. Not Rose burned her hands on the oven. Just our family. Very tidy. She turned back to me. You, Claire, you got the touch too. And now they want to put your name in small letters under his and call it legacy. No more. Mom shook her head, eyes wet. I cannot believe you're taking her side. I'm taking the side of the one who's been doing the work with no say, Grandma said. Same as I wish someone had done for me. Nate leaned back, stung. So I'm just the villain now? No, I said quietly. You're a grown man. You're responsible for your own choices. Just like I am. I reached into my pocket and took out the small bronze key my parents still had, a copy I'd asked Grandma to bring from the bowl by their door, and set it in the middle of the table. This is the only key you have left to my house, I said. After today, you won't have any. Mom stared at it like it was a betrayal in metal form. You're locking us out? I'm setting boundaries, I corrected. My voice shook, but I didn't stop. No more coming in without asking. No more using my kitchen for your events. No more paperwork, plans, or logos with my name attached without my written consent. If you want to see me, you call. If I say no, that's the end of it. Dad's mouth tightened. And if we don't agree? I met his eyes. Then you don't see me. And you sure don't get my name on anything. Dad stood, pushing his chair back. Come on, he said stiffly to Mom and Nate. We're done here. They left in a flurry of hurt looks and huffed breaths, the front door closing a little too hard behind them. Through the window, I watched them get into the car, gestures sharp, mouths moving. I couldn't hear the words. For once, I didn't need to. When the house was quiet again, I turned to Grandma. I'm sorry they dragged you into this, I said. She smiled, small and fierce. They didn't drag me. I walked. Slowly, she reached down and lifted her purse onto her lap. From inside, wrapped in an old dish towel, she pulled out something long and heavy. My breath caught. It was my grandfather's chef's knife. Not the cheap department store one that lived in my parents' drawer now, but the real one, the one he'd used in the lodge kitchen, the one I'd watched him sharpen on a stone when I was little. The handle was worn smooth, but blade had been recently honed. I took this back after your grandfather died, she said. Didn't trust anyone not to toss it in a yard sale. She held it out, handle first. This belongs with the person who treats the craft like something holy, she said. Not the ones who treat it like a prop. You are the one who stayed in hot kitchens for years. Time you held the knife, not just the cutting board. My throat closed up. Carefully, I took the knife from her, the weight settling into my palm like it had been waiting for this moment. Are you sure? I whispered. She nodded. You're the real heir, Claire. Not to the name over some door. To the work. To the truth. We sat there at my kitchen table, the evidence still spread out, the plates empty, the house finally, truly mine. I traced my thumb along the handle of the knife and felt, for the first time, that I wasn't just defending my life from them. I was claiming it. 6 months later, I still wake up thinking I need to clock in at Harborcrest, then remember, I have a kitchen of my own now. At Solstice, the line is mine. Tickets slam into the rail, the burners roar, and the menu says Seasonal Menu by Chef Claire Winslow. The first time a local food blog wrote about us, I bought the paper and read the review 3 times at my kitchen table. They mentioned my short rib stew, called it deeply personal comfort food, and used my full name without once adding daughter of or sister of. My weeks look nothing like they used to. For nights, I live on the line at solstice, tasting, fixing, calling tickets, sending plates back if they're even slightly off. 2 mornings I go back to the culinary college where I once dragged my knife roll, and now I teach master classes on braising and menu design. After class, some of the girls hang back. They tell me about moms who think cooking is a cute hobby, or dads who expect them to run the bar their brothers dreamed up. I don't lecture. I just say what I learned the hard way: one name, one body, one pair of hands. Guard them. Family gatherings still happen, but they're rare and brief now, more like layovers than destinations. I go for birthdays, the occasional Sunday, stay for coffee, and leave before anyone can corner me with a great idea. My father mostly sticks to safe topics, weather, church repairs, but every so often something cracks through. Last month he cleared his throat, stared at the sugar bowl, and said he'd seen my picture in the paper. "Congratulations, Claire," he muttered. They seemed impressed. It wasn't an apology, but it was something new. My mother has shifted in smaller, quieter ways. She still fusses over my hair and wraps leftovers for me twice, but sometimes she just asks about my food. Not how Nate might use it, just the food. "How do you get the pears to stay that shape?" she asked once, actually listening to my answer. At one of those short visits, Paula brushed past me at the sink, bumped my shoulder, and lowered her voice. "You know the greatest victory, right?" she said. "It's not the articles or the word chef before your name. It's when you stop measuring yourself by their standards." If you've ever felt like the resource in your own family, tell your own story in the comments below. I'd love to read it. And don't forget to hit like and subscribe to help yourself and others take that first step toward your own freedom.